We've returned to Oz one last time as Wicked for Good is finally here, but does it deliver the magic that fans have been waiting for? Let's talk about it. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. We have just seen Wicked for Good, and we have a lot of thoughts, so join us for our spoiler-free review as we talk about Wicked. But Nikki, what is Wicked for Good?
Well, Monty, Wicked for Good picks up years after the first film as best friends Elphaba and Glinda are estranged, each living with the consequences of their choices as we saw at the end of the last movie.
Now labeled the Wicked Witch of the West, Elphaba hides in the forests of Oz, fighting to expose the wizard's corruption and protect the animals he's silencing. Glinda, meanwhile, has risen to fame as the shining face of goodness, serving the wizard's regime while struggling with the weight of the fractured friendship.
Well, with Oz turning against Elphaba and tensions rising, Glinda and Elphaba are forced to deal with surprising new challenges as they confront each other and themselves one final time. Their bond, tested and transformed, becomes the key to changing their lives and the fate of Oz for good.
But is this movie for good? Or is it for bad? That is what we are here to talk about. And I do think that if you enjoyed the first Wicked movie, you will come out of Wicked for Good being very, very satisfied. I do think it is a worthy second act to the first movie. And what's surprising is, I think that they play insanely well back to back. Like, I would sit for 5 hours and watch both of these movies as one giant movie. And I think they work well as that.
I think that's very much the intention. I do agree with that. I think it's a very serviceable follow-up. And for me, ultimately, I do think it works as a satisfying conclusion, especially with the way it kind of culminates both Elphaba and Glinda's stories. So I do agree with you that while it's the intention, it does play well as a follow-up to the first one.
I think it plays better as one giant movie than it does as two separate movies, because I do think this movie, while it has insane strengths, it does have some weaknesses. There's some definite inconsistencies in the tone throughout the movie, as well as some pacing problems. I think it's a hair too long in certain spots. And beyond that, I think the movie has weaker songs than the first movie, which has the better songs of the musical. But beyond that, there is some really, really good stuff in here. I think there's some fantastic performances. And overall, it does recapture the magic that the first movie has.
Yeah, I think you're echoing a lot of my thoughts personally. I think this movie has some insanely high highs and some pieces that I particularly want to highlight, but also just some general disappointments with how things were executed, with some directions they took. I do think, like you said, tonally, it's a bit clunkier. Some stuff I don't think meshes well from scene to scene as much. I do love a lot of the songs from the musical that are used in this movie, but others I think were just a bit of a letdown. It's very much for me a mixed bag.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we could all agree on is the performances in this movie are insanely good. Our two leads, Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba and Ariana Grande as Glinda, are magnificent. They were good in the first movie. They are equally as good here. And I think there's a strong case to prop either character up as the star of this film.
Absolutely. I will say that what's interesting is the treatment of Glinda, because we are, like we said, we're taking off directly from the end of the first one, which heavily focused on Elphaba.
Yes.
And I think what's nice about this film in particular is they still give them both a very good amount of focus, but we do get a lot of more additional depth with Glinda that I think they gave to Elphaba in the first movie.
Yes, where Glinda comes off shallow with the beginning notes of depth in the first movie. We explore her character in this the same way we explore Elphaba's in the first movie, and that echoing of each other's storylines in both films is really interesting to me, and I found that exciting to see because I wanted to see Ariana give more to the Glinda character, and she definitely does do that in this movie.
Absolutely, and I will say that what she does very well is, overall, tonally, this movie is a lot more serious and has more dramatic beats. And that does apply to Glinda as we explore her character more. But what I do like is that there is the consistency of her bubbliness, the way that she provides some really good natural comedic relief. And Ariana was very talented in delivering in those moments.
Yes. One of my favorite things about the original movie is that her delivery and her timing, her comedic timing is fantastic. That is not something that you could practice. That's not something you can train. It's definitely a gift, and she's very gifted in that sense. I loved her delivery, and that's back here. We get to see that evolved more with some of her more dramatic acting, and it's a good marrying of both drama and comedy from her. She, to me, was the huge standout because I feel like she needed to do more in this movie than she did in the last one. Cynthia gave us the full gamut last time, so for her to do that again here, we go in expecting that. So she definitely meets and exceeds our expectations, but it's Ariana that does surprise us.
Yes, and I do agree with that. Cynthia still has some extremely fantastic moments. She has one number in particular where I was expecting the direction it was going to go in, but her performance elevates that scene so drastically, and she imbues so much drama and raw emotion into it, but it felt so authentic and unique for that scene. She deserves her flowers.
She's so powerful, both in aura, in presence, in singing, in delivery. I think that if you were to describe her performance as powerful, I think that's really apt because she just exudes power as Elphaba in this movie. It's a person who's discovering their power for the first time and in really trying to live up to all of the abuse that they suffered their entire life, and now they're taking control of their life, and they're trying to give themselves agency over the outcome of the world, a world that really took everything and told them what they had to be before they could really be anything. And I think that's such an interesting arc for Elphaba to go through in this movie, and I love watching Cynthia kind of lead us there. What's crazy is that both actresses give really strong performances separately, but I have to say, my favorite moments of the movie were when they were together. I think they have such great chemistry that when you let the two of them work together in a scene and they come together as a team, that's the most fun I had watching this movie.
No, I completely agree. And if you know anything about the stage production, that shouldn't come too much as a surprise.
Yeah.
But they very much sell it and their relationship and their connection really effectively. Because you talk about having fun with it, but there's also some very deeply emotional and honestly, basically heartbreaking scenes they have together as well. And that's where I think a lot of the strength in their performances come out.
Yeah, because you can't have those impactful, emotionally driven scenes without some levity, right? It's the good times that make the bad times that much more powerful. You need to see what we lost in order for losing anything to really matter at the end of the day. And they do such a good job of showing us the good and the bad between these characters that when you do have the fun moments or the more serious moments, they all work because, again, their chemistry is really magical. Beyond just that, there were some really good side performances in this movie. Jonathan Bailey is back. I loved him. Fiyero was my favorite character in the first Wicked movie. I just love how aloof and fun-loving he was. But at the same time, we saw him grow and we saw him mature. And that evolution definitely continues in this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, he was just an absolute blast in the first one. But I do think there's something to be said for just the consistency with the trajectory of his character.
Yes.
Because in the first movie, he has kind of this instant connection with Elphaba and being sympathetic to her cause and wanting to do the right thing. And that continues into that movie that I think is effective for his character. And it paints him a bit in a different light than I think going into this I was expecting. But I think it's for the better for his character.
It's for good.
That's apropos.
I really loved how much he was in this. I didn't expect him to be in this a lot based off of what the movie was kind of about and how they were building up the film. But for him to be in it as much as he was, I really liked that because I enjoyed him. I enjoyed Jonathan Bailey as a performer. He's one of my new favorites that's out there right now.
He is the sexiest man alive.
He is the sexiest man alive of this year. So you know what? Keep it up, Jonathan Bailey. You were great here. Also, Jeff Goldblum.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So with Jeff Goldblum, similarly, he's being consistent with how he portrayed the wizard in the first movie.
Yeah.
But my goodness, I do think that there's something to be said for he just delivers so consistently in this movie because he has, like I said, kind of that natural charisma and levity and sense of humor that he delivers, but it works so well for the movie.
I would argue that it works better in this movie than it does in the first movie because the first movie just kind of comes out of nowhere and he's doing his full Goldblum. And I think here, how the story is structured, when he comes in to do his full Goldblum, it works better for the story because the story is a lot darker and heavier at times. So when he comes to provide that levity or that aloofness or that just flippant because if you know who the wizard is as a character in any version of the Wizard of Oz, you understand that he's a performer. He's in essence, a grifter in any version of the Wizard of Oz, even where he's portrayed as a good guy, he's a grifter. So I think Jeff Goldblum-isms work really well to show the wizard at this point in his life where he's kind of just like, whatever about it. And he's so just used to having his way with people and steering them in any direction he chooses. He has this sort of God complex, and there's no better person to, I think, portray that than Jeff Goldblum.
And I think what's really interesting about his portrayal is, one, he has a larger role overall, and I think he succeeds in delivering without feeling trite or stale throughout the movie. And he acts as a very interesting foil to Madame Morrible, played by Michelle Yeoh, who is very hateable. You don't like anything she's doing, anything that comes out of her mouth. She's just nasty, vile. And we know he's bad, but he has the opposite. He does have that charisma that made him the person he is in that movie. And I think that's a very interesting contrast that shows the layers and kind of the politics that they're trying to get across in the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like the way that Elphaba and Glinda work so well together as a whole. It's like the wizard and Morrible work so well as a whole because she has power and he has charisma, and they know that they can't do anything separately.
Right.
She knows that no one's going to follow her because she's so miserable and nasty, and he knows he doesn't have the power that people think he has. So it's interesting how there's like a dual tandems going on in the movie, and that's really fun to see that interplay between all four characters. I will say that one of the biggest points of contention with this movie is definitely going to be the tone. I think at times they are able to recapture that wonderful tone of the first movie, a reason why so many people fell in love with the original Wicked. But a lot of times the scenes are played very heavy into drama, almost to the point of melodrama. It feels very soap opera-y from time to time. But I think when they're able to recapture and sink into that fun, sharp tone from the first movie, that's when this film really starts gliding into a place of comfort.
Yeah, it's really difficult because I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of them maybe being campy, over the top at times, because like we talked about, this is overall a darker, more dramatic entry compared to the first movie, especially with where the stakes are at this. And again, it's a musical. Everything is supposed to be a bit over the top. I don't inherently have a problem with that in theory. I think it's when they're trying to mesh the very horrible things going on in this movie, but then they want to inject some levity, and then they also want to inject some hopefulness that kind of feels a little bit thrown in there out of nowhere. There's a lot of stuff that I feel like they're trying to do all the time, and it doesn't always mesh well.
Yeah, like I said, it's very tonally inconsistent, but when they do find the sweet spot, it is very sweet. But what is a musical without music? While I do love the songs that were from the original musical, I will say I'm not a huge fan of the new songs. They're okay.
I guess this is a hot take. I really love the songs in Act 2. Yes, there's some huge bangers in the first act, but I think there's some really big hits in the second one.
There are.
Especially No Good Deed that deserves some plaudits.
Amazing.
But when it comes to the new songs, I was honestly pretty let down by them.
Yeah, I agree. They left me wanting. And it's a common problem in musicals that are adapted into movies when they add songs that weren't from the musicals. My biggest thing is they never really feel like they belong to the same set of music that the other songs came from. They try to match it. They even use the same like musical composition as other songs, and it just reminds me of those songs more, and it has me thinking of what had already came than focusing on the new song that they're trying to develop.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the biggest disappointment. I don't think they're inherently bad.
No.
I just don't think that they elevate the story they're trying to tell. And one of them in particular, the scene that it's the focal point for, I also think was just completely unnecessary, what they try to accomplish with that. And it didn't justify the song's existence well enough.
Yeah, it could have been cut. That whole scene could have been cut, and I don't think the movie would have lost anything for it.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is in that scene, without spoiling it, there is something that happens, but that easily could have been used in a different scene.
Yeah.
And if anything, then it would have been elevated in that regard.
Yeah, it was definitely a scene that felt irrelevant and was just there to kind of give us another song. But I don't think we really needed it in the overall progression of the movie. And that's why I think with some cuts, this could have been a tighter, more fast-paced movie that worked well as a compendium to the first one.
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing is that this movie is a little bit shorter than the first one, but I do think it's paced a little worse. There's stuff that I think could have been edited differently, trimmed a bit, and I think not necessarily that has to be shorter. I think it just needed to tell the story a bit more effectively.
Yeah, at times it feels like it's moving so fast, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe we're already at this point in the movie. And then there are times where I was like, huh, we probably could have shaved some minutes here and saved some valuable time. But overall, I think the marrying of everything all together makes a very fun and watchable movie. So, with that being said, Nikki, on a scale of 1 to 5 bubbles, what do you rate Wicked for Good?
This is really difficult because, like I said, it has very high highs, but some pretty low lows, in my opinion. So for me, it's an overall mixed bag that I'm trying to decide which way that pendulum swings more. But as of right now, and this could change, I am leaning a little bit more positive. I still think it's serviceable. It's a passable movie with, like I said, some great elements to it. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 bubbles.
Nice. I think for me, Wicked for Good is a success because it is able to follow such a successful first movie and give us so many things that we can enjoy. I think the performances are insanely strong. I think overall, Wicked for Good definitely leans towards the positive. There's a lot of things in this film that they get right, even though there are some things that don't work as well. If you are a huge fan of the previous Wicked film, I think you will go into this movie absolutely loving it and finding a lot of the same magic here that you found in the first one. With that being said, I am giving Wicked for Good 3 out of 5 bubbles. I think this is a good time at the theaters. Listen, if you enjoy these movies, if you enjoy musicals, go see it. But overall, I think it would work better as one 5-hour movie experience than as 2 separate films. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest content. If you want to check out our other movie reviews, click the link on the page. And until next time, guys, stay versed.